Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Lincoln Library. I'm Julie Andrews, the director here, and I'd like to welcome you all to this really special event tonight, Baroness May Blood, a celebration of an extraordinary woman. The room is full of people tonight who knew May, loved May, and who respected her, who were influenced and inspired by her, and whose lives were changed by her and the work she did. So I thought to start off before the more interesting part of the night starts by giving you the housekeeping arrangements now. So can you please turn off your mobile phones if you haven't done so already, or turn them to silent. There's no fire drill planned, so if the alarms go off, please follow me or another member of staff and we'll lead you out of the building. The men's toilets are on this floor and the ladies' toilets are level 1, and they're open this evening. If you want to collect a copy of our What's On guide coming out for the rest of March, please do so. And we'd also love anyone here tonight to consider becoming a member of the Lincoln Hall. So on one of the notes on display in the cabinets out there are notes from a talk that May actually gave. And it seems very apt tonight. May said in this note, people can be divided into 3 groups: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wonder what happened. So I think we all know what camp May fell into. I'd like just to welcome and introduce the panelists tonight. So Paul Caskey, first here. So Paul actually and I met about a year ago, and we realised that I worked with his dad many years ago. So Paul Caskey OBE is head of campaign of the Integrated Education Fund, where he worked alongside Baroness May Blood for many years. He joined the IEF in 2000. Paul has worked for the not-for-profit sector for over 30 years. He was formerly Appeals Co-ordinator at the Evelina Children's Hospital St Guy's and St Thomas NHS Trust in London, and was awarded an OBE by Her Majesty The Queen in 2021 for services to education in Northern Ireland. Avila Kilmurray, over here. Avila is the Migration and Peace Building Executive at the Social Change Initiative, a role which supports work with the Migrant Learning Exchange Programme and Learning and Peace Building. She's worked in the community sector and philanthropy in Northern Ireland since 1975. Like Baroness May Blood, Avila was a founder member of the Northern Ireland Women's Coalition. Over the period 1994 to 2014, she was director of the Community Foundation for Northern Ireland. She is a member of the Foundations for Peace Network and serves on an expert advisory committee for the IEF Institute for Integrated Transitions. She is a board member of the International Fund for Ireland, the St Stephen's Green Trust, and is on the Northern Ireland Advisory Committee of the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust. Avila is a visiting professor with the Transitional Justice Institute, Ulster University, and is author of Community Action in a Contested Society, the Story of Northern Ireland. So Jackie I actually worked with as well, so it's beginning to be a bit of a panel tonight where I know what to people. So Dr. Jackie Redpath, MD, is the Chief Exec of the British Shankill Partnership. He grew up in the Woodville area of the Upper Shankill Road and has a degree in modern history from Queen's University. Since the early 1970s, he has committed himself to community development work in the Shankill area of Belfast and to cross-community, cross-border and international work for peace and understanding. And I know from my experience that he was a particular favourite for Baroness May Blood, at least I always felt he was.
Didn't always feel like that.
But I might not have felt like that too, but I think I think that's true. And I'm really delighted with Tara Mills here to chair tonight's event. She's always been a great supporter of the library, and thank you. Known to all of you here. When I looked at Tara's bio online, I discovered the first article she got published was with The Twinkle. And
I'm not really aging myself now.
You can say I meant The Twinkle. So Tara Mills is one of BBC Northern Ireland's lead presenters and journalists. She presents Evening Extra. She co-presents BBC Northern Ireland's flagship television news programme, BBC Newsline. She regularly presents BBC election coverage and was also presenter of Sunday Politics and Storm Today for BBC Northern Ireland. Tara joined the BBC just before the signing of the Good Friday Agreement in 1998. Reporting at the time of momentous change, Tara covered a range of topics from riots, murders and feuds to health issues and social affairs. She notably reported live for BBC Newsline from the Shankill Road area and the Falls on the day the IRA decommissioned. So when I first spoke to Tara about this event, she told me that she accompanied Baroness May Blood on her first day at the House of Lords. So we're delighted to have her as the chair this evening. And a special welcome to the family of Baroness May Blood. We're delighted. Briefly hand over to Samantha, who's going to actually talk about the importance of this archive to the Lincoln Hall. Thank you.
Was an hour stand up?
Hello everyone, I'm Samantha McComb. I am the librarian of the Linen Hall and I am delighted to add my welcome to this evening's event. Thanks so much for being here as we celebrate the legacy of Baroness May Blood and her archive coming to the Linen Hall, elements of which are on display at the library during March, which is especially fitting as it is Women's History Month, and what a woman. Held in the highest regard for her authenticity and integrity, Baroness Blood was a great friend to the Linen Hall, and we were deeply saddened by her passing and join with you all in remembering her with affection and admiration. The Baroness May Blood archive at the Linen Hall has great value and significance locally, nationally, and internationally. The archive gives insights beyond the factual into the remarkable life and career of Baroness Blood, reflecting the many threads to and multifaceted nature of her achievements and accomplishments. Linen mill worker, trade unionist, peace and women's rights campaigner, politician, the first woman from Northern Ireland to be awarded a life peerage, and champion of integrated education. The word tireless features large in descriptions. A trailblazer, small of stature, but never made small. I feel personally privileged to be the archive's first custodian. It complements our archives of the women's rights movement, the Northern Ireland Women's Coalition, personal archives of those who stood shoulder to shoulder with Baroness Blood, and our archives charting the history of integrated education. The Baroness May Blood archive enriches our knowledge and understanding of societal issues and challenges of the times in which she lived and worked. The archive also gives great glimpses of the personal, and I extend our sincere thanks to the family of Baroness Blood for their generosity in donating the archive to the Linen Hall. May's niece Mary will be saying a few words at the end. Thank you, Mary. I would also like to thank our Deputy Librarian Monica and the collections team for the care and consideration taken in preserving and making the archive accessible today and for future generations, and to Patsy for putting together the exhibition of the archive and this wonderful event tonight. And finally, thanks to tonight's panel, who are going to share personal memories and reminiscences of May. And over to you, Tara.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Point out at the very outset that my watch has run out of charge, so you might need to keep me because I'm a bit of a talker, and I know all panelists are talkers too. So we can be here at 9 o'clock if somebody doesn't give me a wave to say stop talking. I feel really honoured and privileged to be there. I know people say things like that, but you know, as Julie said, I have a kind of special connection to May. I'll just say it very briefly in terms of the House of Lords. But the reason that came about was as a kind of rookie journalist just starting off. I met her on Shankill Road at the Sure Start and was just completely blown away by her. I was just so inspired by her enthusiasm and her drive and her commitment. And also, I mean, she was so forward thinking, and obviously Jackie, you were as well, in that work about targeting children and early intervention and the importance of that. And then when you look at what happened with the Women's Coalition and then integrated education, everything was about making people's lives better. And what an incredibly generous and passionate person she was, but no nonsense. And I mean, I got a sneak preview of the exhibition. If you haven't already seen it, please make a chance or make some time to see it. It's fantastic. Some really touching little moments, you know, in the exhibition that really have stayed with me today, are so special. So I'm not going to say anything more. I'm just going to chair. And Jackie, I'm going to start with you. Just for kind of context, how did you first meet May, and what was that kind of initial getting to know you like for you? Because she was quite a unique person.
Yeah. It was, and I'm just trying to remember back, and I think it was like something like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." I said, "Yeah, okay." I'm just thinking I should just be saying to me, you know, "Hey, boy, you be careful what you're saying." You know, yeah, it was. I mean, May's life was in so many parts, and it's just an amazing story. I mean, I was just thinking last night, and then I actually checked back because I couldn't believe it, that she started working in the mill when she was 14 in like 1953 or 54 type of thing, and was there until 1990, so it was like 38 years as a linen worker in the mill. And when you think about almost everything that happened to her, it was life changing. And you know, her life was in all these major parts, and almost everything that happened to her happened by accident. It was never by her design. You know, even when you read one of your colleagues, Mark Carruthers, he did a book, not many people talk about it now, Alternative Ulster, where he did interviews with people, and he interviewed May. And she was saying how she got involved in trade unionism was she went to a meeting in the mill that she was in on the Springfield Road. She wasn't going to say anything, she was standing at the back, which is hard to believe, but she was. And then something was said and she replied, and after it, one of the shop stewards came over and said, listen, you need to get involved here. And you know, she was looked for, and it was not the whole way through to the House of Lords, it was never anything that she looked for. The community stuff is where I came to know her, which was a major part of her life. She was, I was reminded coming in by Billy down at the back there, that she wasn't a Shankill Road woman, she was adopted by the Shankill Road, Shankill, but she actually came from the Grosvenor Road. And you know, when she came to Spring Martin, it's a wild time, and you know, that estate was on the front line in terms of the troubles, and I mean, it was just wild when she came there, and she got involved in community work, and a lot of it's forgotten about. You know, she ran with Dale Harrison, who worked really, really closely with her in there with the Black Mountain Action Group, which still exists, and it's a legacy to many other people run it. No, you know, she got involved in that. She had no work; she was unemployed. She got approached and started managing Karen Martin wood products. And she was very nervous about it because she thought, I know nothing about it. She was always against the managers, you know, or it's going to manage me. That was a big change for her. And then when that wood products thing folded, she got involved with us around regeneration. And the focus for her and for us at the time was on early years and this new generation of children in the Greater Shankill to advantage that generation. And we got money together, which was beyond our wildest dreams, from the EU Urban One community programme, and it was between ourselves and the Upper Springfield Development Trust on a cross-community basis. And we set up, and there's some of the people here set up the Early Years Project, which eventually became Sure Start, and it was groundbreaking. I mean, in the early 90s, mid-90s, early years wasn't a concept that anybody was talking about, you know. Now, you know, it's great that it's in the lexicon, and we all know about it and it's important, so it still needs proper funding. But we set that up, and May was like this, the energy, the power, the strength behind it, and she stayed with that right up to the end until she was no longer able even to come down with a lift. You know, from Spring Martin to be in the office, right up until she went into hospital at the end. So she, you know, that was a thread right through her life, and the passion of her to see young children, really young children in their early years getting a chance. And it has changed so many lives.
Absolutely. I mean, it's impossible to quantify, but that must be the legacy, really, isn't it? You know, those children that, and as you say, it was so far ahead of its time, and we now accept the importance of early intervention as if it's always been thus, and it hasn't, and she was at the forefront, as were you. I'll come back to you, Jackie, obviously, for many more stories, but Paul, when it comes to the integrated education side of things, how did you first meet May Blood?
Well, that was about 22, 23 years ago, Tara, so probably the late comer, if you like, in terms of knowing May. But it came, and he's here, and I always tell the story. My colleague Brian had the foresight to say one day in a meeting, there's something about May Blood, and do you think we should reach out to her? And our chair at that time was the late Bob Cooper. You probably remember from Fair Employment Days and attempts for power sharing and Stormont. And Bob says, Brian, great woman, but no money. She's not going to be able to help us make it. Brian said, well, you know, Bob, I think we should just reach out. And that's what happened. And there was a letter went out to May. And her response at the time was, right boys, what's the commitment? And Brian said to her, well, May, would like you to come to a meeting about every 6 weeks. For how long? About 6 months. And May always told that story, and just as Jackie says with Sheer Start and the LSE, continued right to the very, very end. But I tell this every time about May, is that, and this is really important, she was a skeptic. She was cynical about integrated education. She thought this was something that, you know, the do-gooders, I don't mean to put them down, but you know, the Alliance Party, North Down, that sort of thing. It wasn't for the people of Springwater, for the people of Shankill, the people of the young people she worked upon. But of course, when May got her title, opportunities arose and everybody wanted to come and do prize givings or do a talk. And she always told the story when she got a chance. She was invited up to Hazelwood College up in the Peace Line in North Belfast. And she realised that was, I would say that was her moment. She was going down the corridor and people were saying, hello May, and Heather, you know, I mean, with connections to Hazelwood when we think about it now, and her own family. But that was the moment for May. She says, where have I been? This is for the people that I work upon. And so she threw her heart and soul into it. There's no other way of describing it. And she often said it became her passion in life. And I mean, the doors she opened, I mean, she loved using her title. You know, she said, look, if I can open a door using my title, I don't mind doing so. And she says, now I'll tell you another thing, I don't mind asking people for money, which was a great gift and not many people have. She says, I don't care if people cross the street to avoid me. I don't care because I don't mind asking for money for the things that I believe in. And she had a great, I always say, she could work with anybody. It didn't matter if you were royalty, the President of the United States, or a student in a school. May treated everybody the same. And that's certainly been my experience with her. And I think that was a great gift. And she held true to her principles forever. You know, she never changed. She never wanted to change. And just, you know, I'm so pleased there's a number of our schools and schools here tonight. And she loved going out and visiting the schools. It gave her the biggest thrill. And she connected, to be honest, with the students more than she connected with the teachers or the governors. You know, it was the young people that she cared about the most. So yeah, I mean, she was just an incredible advocate. And you couldn't put her in a box. You couldn't pigeonhole May. You could never say she was on this side or that side. She always said to me, you know, Paul, to be perfectly honest, I'd probably get a better reception walking down to Springfield than I do walking down to Shankill. But she said, you know, that was her ability. And I said this thing to her funeral. She had a unique, and I think it is unique, that she could transcend the sectarianism. She could transcend the labels like nobody else. And she put the fear of God into it as well. You were very stiff of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. But I think that was her persona. But inside, there was such compassion and love for people.
It's lovely. You'll see it in the exhibition, the letter from Romola, who said the same thing. She was terrified of her. But I suppose that was the thing. She was the epitome of what people argued for during the Troubles endlessly, that actually the people on both sides, on Shankill and the Falls as a kind of example, had more in common than the people in Shankill and say North Down or the Falls and you know, parts of Armand and Newry and whatever. So she was that kind of very special person that could supersede all of those kind of fights and sectarianism that were so into it. I suppose from your point of view, I'm quite interested to hear on the political side, because in some ways it's almost surprising that she ended up in a political party because she was such an independent thinker, but it would only have been the Women's Coalition, wouldn't it?
It would, but actually I knew May back from the trade union movement.
Yeah.
I would have met May first probably about 1986 in the Transport and General Workers Union movement. It's now Unite. And it was very funny because she was, at that stage she was a cutter in the factory. And not very many women got to be cutters. It was all men that were cutters in the factory. Because of the job it was. But she was on the regional committee of the Transport and General Workers Union. She was the only woman on the regional committee. Yeah. I remember, and we were brought in, a number of us were sort of, you know, to actually set up the first women's committee for the union, and it's an all-Ireland union here, it predated partition. You know, but May was quite annoyed because I remember meeting her first. She said, "Women's committee? Why do we need a women's committee? We'll be on the regional committee." And our regional secretary at the time was a man called John Freeman. And he used to talk about my women. He said, "I give him my women." He said. But she actually then, over time, came round to the idea of a women's committee because I think, you know, we had people there from a lot of different workplaces and people who really weren't that competent, you know. And she was great about actually giving them a bit of confidence and building them up, and basically saying, you can do anything. And if those men think they can do it, you can certainly do it better than them. So coming into the Women's Coalition then wasn't that much of a surprise. Because she, at that stage, actually, 1996, 95, we were talking about it. May was the chair of the Shankill Women's Forum, which actually was a very successful initiative, bringing a lot of women together in the Shankill. And she kept sort of saying, look, we need to get our voices across. There's enough of us just talking to ourselves. We need to break into where decisions are being made. So she could see the benefit of something like the Women's Coalition. And I think she joined it because we deliberately said it wasn't a party. It was more a movement, and taking the opportunity to move. And I always remember her, she was, because we set it up within 6 weeks of the election, which was rather chaotic. But I mean, she came along and a number of people sort of said, no, you shouldn't do it, but she actually was very determined that we did it. And I remember her sort of saying at the second meeting, which was in the old garage in what was then People's College, she says, and we need to make it that any woman can feel that they have a part of it. And she says, I will pay for an ad personally, she said, in the Belfast Telegraph, saying that, and again, this was 6 weeks before the election, any woman who's interested in politics, who wants to make a difference, who agrees with the 3 principles that we had of human rights, inclusion, we talk to everybody, and equality, that they bring their name forward and we will interview them to be a candidate. And we got 70 women in 2 weeks. But May having the sort of the leap of imagination to say, look, rather than just talking to ourselves or talking to groups, put it out in the Telegraph and we see what happens basically. So she was all about really trying to sort of stretch out, and one of the reasons that she loved the coalition was that it was deliberately a cross-community party and had two leaders, one from the Protestant Unionist background, one from Catholic nationalist, and that was the sort of thing that I think that she perceived.
Yeah, that it appealed to her, obviously, with the integrated education. I was looking at one of the photographs earlier, and we thought that she was the only woman in this picture of kind of 60 men, but there was one other woman. But it was such a kind of male-dominated world that she found herself in, particularly around the trade unions. But she was able to kind of pursue helping everybody, but doing it from that kind of female perspective as well, and that kind of female attitude. What do you think motivated her?
I think she was indignant about the class situation, about basically people not getting an opportunity, that from virtually birth, as Jackie said, is why she put so much into the early years side of things, that she just felt it was not fair. And basically then she became indignant about it not being fair, and then decided on what can we do to take action.
So that strength of social justice,
yes,
that was just in her, and she used it to, what amazing effect. Jackie, when you look back, and it must be really difficult actually for the people who've been close to her, and obviously for the family as well, because it's bringing back all those memories of her, and but what is if there's one that stands out, if someone was to say to you, what's the thing that stands out about May Blood and your relationship with her over those years? What would it be? What story just kind of exemplifies that?
I think it was her determination to get things done. Somebody maybe already used the word, or maybe it was when we were talking before we came up here, that she was tireless, was like a term, and she just didn't stop. And I remember trying to find out how she relaxed, because she would get wound up about things. I mean, things got her really annoyed. Like you say, indignant was a feature. I remember Kevin, she went home and painted the house. And she used to go into your room and didn't need painted, but she just started painting it, and it was her way of getting rid of that stress. But there was another side to me. She was a very serious woman. She was very conscious of being a woman in a man's world very often, and it's probably why she quite enjoyed it. Because she wanted to make a point about that. But when May relaxed, she relaxed. She liked the gin and tonic. She was great fun, and there was people here who had been in the United States with her when all the business was over out there or whatever, and May relaxed her at home. And you know, she actually really enjoyed herself, even though she was a very serious person. But I mean, probably one of the, I remember, I mean, the trouble is we're being recorded here, so there's things I
We just pause for a
can't, I can't really
second.
talk about. But so I'm doing that in the first, but I remember she was a massively generous woman. And so many, you hear stories back now of acts of kindness that she did. It was often about her having people money, you know, young people and stuff that nobody knew about. You just hear some of these things back now. But she loved entertaining people in the House of Lords. I mean, if you went, and actually, I remember my youngest daughter was in London and going over to see her. She said, I haven't come to the House of Lords yet. Like, she was indignant that you could go to London and not come to the House of Lords. So went to the House of Lords, and I mean, she was so generous with that. And we had lunch, and I mean, it was amazing because she just went around all the other lords in the room that were having lunch, cutting them in pieces privately. You know, I can't even say who they were, believe it or not, still alive. But she did that, and then she said we're going to the bar, and there was you know, there was the House of Lords and the House of Commons. One was red, one was green, and you didn't go across these parts of it. But there was a bar in it where the House of Commons met the House of Lords, and I went with her, and there was where she met Jerry Pitt, who was in the House of Commons, and Terry said, what do you want to drink? And gin and tonic and whatever. And then, of course, May, who wouldn't be beholden to anybody, and that would be a feature of her leadership, be beholden to nobody, was buying a drink back, and gin and tonic, Jerry, as he was, like the gin and tonic or double ones or and she got him a gin and tonic and they put ice on it. I said, you get rid of that ice out of it. It makes too much noise when I'm shaking. I just cracked up. I mean, you know, that was like, that combination of her and him and standing between them was just like, you were going, where am I? You know, it was amazing.
I love that. I love that story. Paul, I wonder, you know, I'll ask you the same thing, you know, for your kind of favourite story, but just before you get to that, I just wonder, the fact that she started work at 14, was that part of the reason that she valued education so much, because she didn't have a full education? She stopped at 14.
I think definitely. I mean, the thing, when I was talking about the trade union, she always said to me, I got my education through the trade union. And she was immensely proud of the union for doing that for her. I also think, she carried that with her, because sometimes you read about May and you see, she didn't often speak on the floor of the House of Lords. And I remember she said to me one time, she said, it's very intimidating, Paul, because I'm surrounded by these eminent people. So these people went to Oxford and Cambridge. I don't think I can do that. I mean, she was the most amazing speaker, but she felt that she couldn't quite. I think that was something she held with her, because she left school at the age of 14 and carried it with her. But it's I'm picking up from where Jackie's at, the generosity, of course, the sense of social justice and equality were important to her. But it was those generous acts. I told a story the other day, so if you've heard it before, I apologise. But when she came to the IEF, as a volunteer, and we were trying to do the right thing and say, no, May, you're a volunteer. You know, you can claim for expenses. She says, can I? Great. She says, there's the form. And she ripped it up and put it in the bin. The air miles, Jackie says, we travelled to the States. May paid for herself. May wouldn't have taken anything out of the organisation. She wanted to put everything back. And if she was entertaining somebody in the House of Lords, that was May that was doing that. So there was a real generosity about her as well. But the funny stories are too many. I'm sort of repeating ones that May was. I think the one about her titles, a cracker, were you know, Baroness Blood of Blackwater Town in the county of Armagh. And you'd be, well, what the hell is that about? And she used to tell the story when, you know, obviously she didn't initially accept the title, which was not the done thing, and she wanted time to think about it. Why? Because she said she was scared of what people might think of her. You know, would people in the Shankill think, now, who the hell does she think she is? Baroness Blood. And so she thought long and hard about it, and then back to her generosity of spirit, she said, look, I'll do it, but I'll do it, and I'll do it for the people. I'll use it to give something back. But you had to pick a title. I don't know the whole process is this. Black Rod and all contacts you, and you must have a title. And May wanted, she was talking about the Blackie River, and the House of Lords were going, the Blackie? Where's the Blackie? It was the Blackstaff River. I could be Baroness Blood of Blackstaff River and things like that. I like the House of Lords. So, but May, you know, and they looked it up and they got the map out and they said there is a Blackwater River in Armagh that flows to Armagh. And May was so fed up. She says, right, dead on, I'll take that. But genuinely, she didn't know that Blackwater is a staunchly Republican village. So she told the story, which she told us on the Kelly show one night, I think, and she was worried about it, but she went down to Blackwater, and right enough, there was a tricolour, there was all murals. I thought, oh, Jesus, what have I done? And of course, as Jackie will know, the ones in the Shankill were eager to know what her title was going to be, and when they found out, it was, you know, what the hell are you doing picking that title? Sure, it's a Republican hole. So they told the story on TV. She says, I'm reclaiming it back for the Protestant people. But she got away with it, and the people of Blackwater invited her down and gave her some amazing reception. But that was May. But I mean, that's there. I mean, there's so many funny stories.
Yeah. It's just that hands across the barricade, though. In some ways, it's not surprising at all. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Look, what's your favourite story? What will always sustain you in those moments where you just think, oh, it's just such a shame she's no longer with us?
Well, she was, well, one of the ones that I always remember is actually was an interview on Good Morning Ulster. It was just the morning that the House of Lords thing was announced, you know, and I remember the interviewer asked her, saying, I mean, you know, I mean, how do you survive with all these people with estates and domains and God knows whatever else, you know, just, I live in an estate and I have no intention of leaving it. But also, the other thing that I always remember from May, I mean, she had great integrity. And she hated paramilitaries. She hated paramilitaries of every hue, basically. And I always remember her saying, because I was saying to her, you know, will you come over, you know, at Christmas? No. Anyway, she said, anyway, I just had a phone call. She said, and his wife was working in Spring Martin, and I was saying, May, don't bother to buy a turkey, because you won't be around to eat it. She says, I just turned around and said, I don't like turkey anyway. She says. But so she, you know, she was never afraid to upfront situations, and I mean, she did cover up quite a bit. I mean, because I remember her saying, you know, that, you know, she was actually very lonely that first period when she was in the House of Lords, and found it quite difficult those first couple of years, you know. But you wouldn't have known it from her, because, you know, she put on a face about it, and as we say, you know, then made the best of it, really.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because when again in the exhibition, there's that note that talks about a time that a young girl was sitting beside her at an event, and the girl suddenly got stage fright whenever her name was announced, and then put her arm around her and said, "You can do it. You can do it." So it's that inspiration. So she was kind of social justice. She was hands across the kind of divide here, always trying to do something, but also kind of trying to give confidence to women in particular.
Yes, she was, and I think she did that well through the Women's Coalition, but whatever sphere she was in, to be quite honest, you know, whether it's the community sphere, you know, I remember her talking about the time that she was working with Kate Kelly and the Making Belfast Work and Belfast Action Teams up in Spring Martin, and sort of saying, you know, yeah, and we got 3 or 4 women around us. And initially we just had to meet in each other's houses, and we'd one man because he was good at doing the minutes, basically. But you know, but with working with Dane and people like that, again, it was sort of saying, no, you can do it, and we can make a difference here, and bringing women as far as possible along with her was really important to her.
It's not necessarily straightforward, as the Women's Coalition found. You know, the kind of negativity from men, particularly from some of the other political parties. And did she talk about that? How did she feel? Because I know I've heard from other members of the Women's Coalition talk about that time. It was so difficult and so misogynistic.
It was, but I think May almost had a coat of armour from the trade union movement. Yeah. So actually, she actually didn't take them that seriously. She thought that we're talking a load of rubbish half the time, basically, you know. So she would sort of say, look,
yeah, what ducks back. Oh, look, I'm just aware of the time, so just to ask you each a final thought on her legacy. What do you think her legacy is, and will we ever see her like again? I don't want to be depressing about it and say that we won't, but it's a different world we're living in now, and she was truly unique.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. We won't see her like again because she was a product. What we need to know is that she was a product of linen mills. You know, I mean, there's a passing, or if not past generation now, that was, I mean, my whole family, my mother, my father, aunts, uncles, all worked in linen mills, you know, and it subsumed your entire life because they owned your house. They, you know, the mill owners owned your house, they paid your wages, took it back in the rent for the house, and just your whole life. And it was a really tough, hard life. So that made her, and you know, she was born before the Second World War, was brought up during it, and all of that. And she could have been a lot of things. May, Billy's gamble down the back. I mean, May passed the 11 plus, but couldn't go to grammar school because she couldn't afford it to go to grammar school, you know. And, you know, in another time, in another era, she would have been a different person, but she was a product of those mills, which was a tough place. And the book she wrote, you know, Watch My Lips, you know, where she could lip read. And I learned later, Billy might know this, I don't know, that senior civil servants were trained to read papers upside down, so as when you were sitting opposite them at the table negotiating, they could see what notes you had on the table. May was able to read their lips, and they didn't know. So she was invaluable to have at meetings. So you can see her like, but one of the things, just picking up from what Avila and you just said, this room could be full of younger women. Oh, apologies. I've just made a terrible error. Of young women who she was an inspiration for, and I know this because May didn't, you know, she wasn't easily contacted. You know, like mobile phone, a reluctant user of a mobile phone. I mean, I still had her home phone number.
Yeah, we did in the BBC as well, yeah.
And so she wasn't easily, but the number of people that would have got in touch because it was a Shankill and she knew she was about Shankill saying, I need to meet May Blood, I'd love to meet May Blood or whatever is the way of contacting her. It was Wendy here, who essentially was her private secretary in the early typed her speeches and all this sort of thing. You know, I mean, I know that she's an inspiration to an awful lot of young women who aren't necessarily here tonight, though some of them are.
Stop digging, Jackie.
I nearly made it through. They would be pleased about this.
Paul, what about you? What do you think the legacy is? And obviously, you're continuing the work that she did, and there's a big organisation there, and it kind of feels unstoppable in some ways because it's just going from strength to strength. But what do you think is her legacy? Is it a bit of all of these things?
It's got to be a bit of everything. I mean, naturally, integrated education would be in a far worse place if it wasn't for May Blood. I honestly would go forward to say there's schools out there that wouldn't exist if it hadn't been for her, because she was the person who was leading that charge to find the money so we could get behind them. So obviously integrated education, and that will continue to drive forward. I have to say early years in the Shankill, May spoke, she was so proud of Sure Start and what she started out there and how that, and that's going to continue. And the other thing I think, I mean, another perhaps obvious one is women entering politics. And she was really proud of the coalition, and she felt that the coalition had achieved what it set out to do. And despite not agreeing with the politics, I'm pretty sure May would have been pleased to see a first and deputy first minister who were both women, because she certainly was the same when it was Arlene and Michelle before. And I think she'd be delighted that Jane Brady was the head of the civil service, coming from an engineering background and everything like that. So those are things she'd be very proud of, and that's why towards the end of her life as well as with integrated education, she gave a bit of support to politics in action, because she loved to see young people getting interested in politics and going on. And she was always talking about the difficult questions, you know, when she went out to schools dear God, they were asking me about Abortion Act and everything. She wasn't prepared for this, but she loved it. She loved to see young people engaging in politics. I think our legacy is massive. I really do. And I don't think there is, and there will be anybody quite like her.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it? Avila, I suppose just a final word from you on this. Again, it's hard to quantify how many people she has inspired, and that legacy will live on. And I suppose part of the exhibition, the fact that the permanence of that now, that's available for people to see here in the Linen Hall, it's really special.
Yes, it is special. I think it's really important, and it's great that Linen Hall has actually done that. But for me, though, actually, what we haven't touched on, for me, May's legacy is also that she's the epitome of a progressive unionist. May was, a very determined unionist in terms of the British identity, but she was progressive. And the interesting thing about May was she didn't feel the need to put anybody else down to prove her identity and her unionism. In fact, the opposite. And she would have talked about these politicians who are looking to divide us. And she said, I'm going back to just after the ceasefires, talking about the importance of taking that step at community level to work, as it was with Geraldine McAteer then, who was over in the Falls. They want to divide us, but that's boys playing politics, basically. We won't let them do that. And she was progressive in that, she had come from that Labour tradition, which sort of then got lost here. I mean, really, I suppose, when you had the binary between, unionism and republicanism. But she held to that. And that's why she actually did a line in them with the British Labour Party in the House of Lords. And really from that flowed a lot of the social justice concerns. And one of my memories was she was incandescent with rage whenever they started rebuilding the peace wall in Spring Martin. She said, they built the peace wall, put millions into it, put in a police station that's looking down on Springfield. They could have kept 4 youth clubs running in fundraising money. That, she brought everything back to sort of, again, how could life be better? And from her point of view, putting money into something like that was not necessarily going to make life better.
Thank you all so much. That was really lovely. Thanks a million.
We've got Mary McFall, who's May's niece, is going to say a couple of words.
And I'm nothing like May.
And I just want to say, what an honour it is to have you and Heather here, and when we're launching the exhibition today, and yeah, just fantastic. So I'll let you say a few words.
Well, I always remember May as my Aunt May. I remember the bad times we had and the good times, the times of the troubles, and the time of the big electric strike, and her and I and my father climbing over these big massive things to get out to go to work, because we were all thinking, well, nobody's going to put food on the table, so we have to go to work. So we went to work, and I worked in the mill along with May. May would always be a very private person, but she was always there for me through my whole life. She was good to talk to, because if you were talking rubbish, she told you were talking rubbish. Or she would say, get yourself on the way home. But she really believed in all the things that she was involved in, and she really gave her 100% every time. And I remember her in the Salvation Army, and she used to sell the war cries on the Grosvenor Road pubs and on the Falls pubs, and she never really cared what you were. She always had, she even thought at one time she might become a missionary, but that didn't happen for whatever reason. Her health wasn't great then. But she'd say to me, especially before she passed away, she'd say to me, I had a very full life. And I would say to her, well, I'm so proud of all the things that you've done and all the things you accomplished. And even today, I would get people stopping me and saying, May done this for me, May done this for my son, or I got my daughter in here, or I got my daughter that job, and people would still come up and say these things to me. And she would never, ever talk about what she'd done for anybody. she would never claim anything. She would just do it on the quiet and help anybody she could, and that's the way she was. And I mean, all that you have talked about tonight, you've took all that I was going to say. But I also would like to thank Hall Street for all they've done and all the work they have put in. This to me is like a walk through May's life, what we could go look at now, and people can get a wee sense of who she was. And she also had great faith. She always had great faith in God. She would never talk about that, but she had. And you just miss her because she wanted to do so much more that she never got the opportunity for. But I'm hoping the legacy that she's left, that everybody will be continuing to help her do whatever she had in her mind to do. That's it.
So much, and it's just great to have that contribution tonight, and from the family. And yeah, thank you so much to all of you, and thank you so much to our panel tonight: Avila Kilmurray, Paul Caskey, and Jackie Redpath, and very expertly chaired by Tara Mills. And the exhibition is on until the end of March. It has been an absolute pleasure and an honour to work on it, and I hope it is a walk through May's life, and it is just a glimpse of the very many things she did and her achievements. And I hope if you have a chance, over the next month, to come and spend a bit of time and look at it and say thanks very much for coming tonight. All right, all the very best.